Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome to PMDC online lecture room. This is Bakhtiar Ahmad, lecturer in elective English, PMDC Colleges, Peshawar. Dear students, this is my third consecutive video lecture, the plot summary of the novel Far from the Madding Crowd, written by Thomas Hardy. So dear student, my today's lecture is again very interesting, which is full of some hysterical and stunning dramatic scenes that catches reader's attention. In today's lecture, I will take the story ahead and I will lead the story to conclusion, and I will also give you an assignment. But before taking the story ahead, I would like to throw some light on my previous lecture. In my previous lecture, I have discussed that Gabriel, he lost his 200 sheep, and he also lost all his belongings, and he had nothing left with him. And also his job hunt was started, and his job hunt brought him to Weatherbury, and he unknowingly saved, he was instrumental to save Bathsheba's bricks from fire, and Bathsheba hired him as a shepherd. And then William Baldwood made his appearance when Fanny Robin was disappeared, and then Bathsheba Verdine, she sent thoughtless Valentine to William Baldwood. And in the subplot of the novel, there was an affair between Fanny Robin and Sergeant Troy. And the last point of my previous lecture was there was an encounter between Bathsheba Everdeen and Sergeant Troy. Like his spur was entangled with her skirt, and he was a great flatterer. He gifted her a golden watch. Also, he helped her in hiving the bees. Then he showed her the sword play in the middle of the fern trees, and finding the opportunity, he kissed her. There was an infatuation between the two. Okay, dear students, from this Gabriel Oak, he did not like their infatuation, so he openly and very frankly he warned Bathsheba Everdeen of the consequences, and he reminded her the promise that she had made with William Baldwood. William Baldwood also threatened Bathsheba that he would punish Troy for changing her mind. Then Bathsheba, she was greatly agitated by the threats of William Baldwood. So she had two remedies. One was merely to keep Sergeant Troy away from Weatherbury, and the second was to give up, to break up with Sergeant Troy. So she decided to visit, to drive to Bath in order to bid Sergeant Troy farewell and to break a relation with him. What happened in the circumstances, she very dramatically reached the Bath, but Sergeant Troy, he was a very cunning person, so he married Bathsheba Verdine by arousing her jealousy. He told her that he loved another woman, beautiful woman. She was more fairer, beautiful than Bathsheba Verdine, and he was going to marry that woman. So at this, Bathsheba's jealousy was arose, and she thoughtlessly married Sergeant Troy, and their marriage was confirmed by Cannibal. When Cannibal brought the news of their marriage, like Cannibal had seen some we can say the marriage ceremony were there. So later on there was an encounter between William Baldwood and Sergeant Troy. Sergeant Troy, he came to Weatherbury after Bathsheba Verdine. So William Baldwood begged Troy not to marry Bathsheba, and he would give him a handsome amount of money upon Fanny's marriage. But at first he befooled Sergeant Troy, befooled William Baldwood, and later on he declared that he disclosed that Bathsheba had already surrendered herself to Sergeant Troy. Okay, Troy's fickle nature began to appear soon. He resigned from army. He started lavishly spending money on horse races. He started staking money on horse races, and he put all the laborers to sleep by offering them strong drink. It was a stormy night, and all of the rigs were exposed to danger. It was Gabriel Oak who saved the naked and unprotected rigs of Bathsheba Everdeen. And there was a tussle, there was a conflict between Bathsheba Everdeen and Sergeant Troy when he wanted money. And Bathsheba Everdeen, she refused to pay the money, so he reproached Bathsheba Everdeen. Then later on, there was a chance meeting of Troy with Penny Robin on the Castor Bridge Highway. Sergeant Troy and Penny Robin and Bathsheba Everdeen, they were riding on a they were going somewhere on a Castor Bridge Highway. They came across Penny Robin. Whenever Penny Robin identified Sergeant Troy that he was riding with another strange woman, so she uttered a hysterical cry, and at this Troy's heart moved by her distress, and his conscience rebuked him for beastly conduct towards her, because she was impregnated by him and she was passing through trials and tribulations. So at that time he handed her a little amount of money, and he promised her to meet him at the Grace Bridge on Monday morning at 10 o'clock. Okay, then there was a tussle between Bathsheba and Troy for money, because Sergeant Troy had promised Fanny Robin that he would meet her on Monday morning at 10 o'clock on Grace Bridge, and he was short of money whenever he asked money from Bathsheba Everdeen, so she refused to pay because she thought that it was for the horse races. So there was a tussle, there was a conflict between the two. Also, when Sergeant Troy, he opened the casing of his watch, so Bathsheba Everdeen, she noticed a lock of yellow hair, and she was much grieved and fought with Troy for keeping another woman's hair. Then later on, Penny Robin's death news came to Castor Bridge, and she died in the Castor Bridge Union House. So Bathsheba Everdeen, she sent Joseph Poorgrass to bring Fanny's dead body to Weatherbury, but on the way back, Joseph Poorgrass stayed. He lingered in a Buck's Headen with Jan Cogan and Mark Clark. Soon he was followed by Gabriel. So Gabriel followed him, and he brought the dead body of Fanny Robin to Weatherbury. When Bathsheba brought her coffin into her house, and she saw that in the coffin there was not only Fanny Robin but also her child, and she noticed her yellow hair too. So she got suspicious, and her doubt turned to reality when Troy sank upon his knees, and full of remorse and reverence for the dead woman, and he bent over her and he gently kissed her and declared that Fanny would be his wife in the heaven. And so Bathsheba asked him if Fanny was his wife, what she was. Troy told her clearly that she was nothing to him, and a marriage before a priest could not make a marriage. So Bathsheba could not stand anything, and she left the place, and she spent the whole night outside her house. Then Sergeant Troy's heartful tribute to Fanny and rejection of Bathsheba. What happened? Troy planted flower plants of many varieties upon Fanny's grave, and he erected a tombstone upon Fanny's grave. And also he rejected Bathsheba. So in order to avoid the meeting with Bathsheba, he started toward the south, and he came to an ocean where he plunged into the water. He was taken by a strong current of water, and some of the sailors saved him from drowning into the water. The news spread that Troy had drowned in the sea. It was confirmed by his clothes at the seashore. Baldwood began to cherish a new hope of marrying Bathsheba Everdeen. Oh, Gabriel Oak becomes wary of Bathsheba and had a share in Baldwood form also. But after a few years, Troy reappears at the sheep fair on the Green Hill. Troy disguised himself as one of the performers in the circus show at the annual sheep fair on Green Hill. But Bathsheba didn't recognize Troy in that disguise. Then Baldwood Christmas party. At Bollywood's Christmas party, because Bollywood arranged a lavish party to celebrate the occasion, and also he was expecting that Bathsheba would be consented to give her hand, and he proved successful to some extent. But at the very moment, Roy burst into the hall and asked Bathsheba to go with him. Bathsheba was speechless and silent. Then he tried to jerk her by her hand, and she gave a scream, as if he had hurt her. At this stage, Bollywood fired a shot at Troy and killed him. Bollywood, after killing Sergeant Troy, he went straight to Castor Bridge and surrendered himself to police. And after a couple of months, he was sentenced to death. But a mercy petition was sent to the Home Secretary on the ground that Bollywood had not been in his right mind. As a result, the death penalty was commuted to life imprisonment. Okay, then in the circumstances, what happened? Gabriel Oak had became indifferent to Bathsheba Everdeen, and he decided to leave her completely. But Oak had become indispensable to Bathsheba Everdeen. Bathsheba consented to marry Oak. Thus came about the union of Bathsheba with a man who had been her very first lover and who served her loyally and loved her truly for a long time. So the story came to an end. Look at, I will read it for you. Look at, this is complete summary of the novel, but I have made it short. At the beginning of the novel, Bathsheba Everdeen is a beautiful orphan girl. She meets Gabriel Oak, a young farmer, and saves his life. One evening, he asks her to marry him, but she refuses because she does not love him. Upon inheriting her uncle's prosperous farm, she migrates to the town of Weatherbury. A disaster befalls Gabriel's farm and he loses his sheep. He is forced to give up farming. He goes looking for work, and in his travels finds himself in Weatherbury. After rescuing a local farm from fire, he asks the mistresses if she needs a shepherd. It is Bathsheba, and she hires him. As Bathsheba learns to manage her farm, she becomes acquainted with her neighbor, Mr. Bollywood, and on a whim sends him a valentine with the words, "Marry me." Bollywood becomes obsessed with her and becomes her second suitor. Bathsheba refuses him because she does not love him, but she then agrees to reconsider her. That very night, Bathsheba meets a handsome soldier, Sergeant Troy. Unknown to Bathsheba, he has recently impregnated a local girl, Fanny Robin. Troy falls in love with Bathsheba, enraging Bollywood. Bathsheba travels to Bath to warn Troy of Bollywood's anger, and while she is there, Troy convinces her to marry him. Gabriel has remained her friend throughout and does not approve of the marriage. A few weeks after his marriage to Bathsheba, Troy sees Fanny poor and sick. She later dies, giving birth to her child. Bathsheba discovers that Troy is the father. Grief-stricken at Fanny's death and riddled with shame, Troy runs away and is thought to have drowned. With Troy supposedly dead, Bollywood becomes more and more emphatic about Bathsheba marrying him. Troy sees Bathsheba at a fair and decides to return to her. Bollywood holds a Christmas to which he invites Bathsheba and again proposes marriage. Just after she has agreed, Troy arrives to claim her. Bathsheba screams and Bollywood shoots Troy dead. He is sentenced to life in prison. A few months later, Bathsheba meets Gabriel. Now, dear student, this was all about the story. I hope you have really enjoyed the story. It is very interesting, and some critical questions will be discussed at the end of this lecture. Not only at the end of the lecture, but also after discussing the characters as well. So we will give you a detailed lecture on the critical questions of the story of the novel. Dear student, I have picked out some of the MCQs from previous board papers. Look at, these are the MCQs. If you have carefully watched my video lecture, you can easily attempt these questions. Okay, dear student, this is an assignment for you. The assignment is very interesting as ever. Read the text from the from 10 to 20 chapters of the novel, Far from the Madding Crowd, and summarize those chapters in your own word. This is an assignment for you. I hope you have done your previous assignments as well, and you will hand do the assignment in college. Dear student, thank you very much for watching my video lecture, and inshallah in next video lecture we will discuss about the major characters of the novel. Okay dear students, till the time we meet, happy learning, keep loving literature.